Tom Cole. Let's bring in the Democratic Congressman John Delaney of Maryland. Congressman, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Shepard.
You were at the meeting, right? What went down?
Which meeting you're referring to?
It was my understanding that you were at a meeting yesterday where Democrats came together to discuss all this?
Right. We did have a meeting at the White House, and we talked about what's going on, and we talked about the consequences of violating the debt ceiling, which are significant, and we talked about the general state of play.
And where are you in all of this? I know you have like 100,000 workers around your area.
We had a large concentration of federal workers in our district, so this is obviously very upsetting for them and upsetting for me. So from my district's perspective, this is a bad thing. It's also obviously a bad thing for the country. So where I am on this thing is we should be raising the debt ceiling for all the obvious reasons that we've talked about as it relates to the debt ceiling. We should be opening up the government, but we should also be engaging in a serious conversation about what is driving the fiscal trajectory of this country. And I think we all know what that is. It's the entitlement programs, it's our inability to do comprehensive tax reforms, it's a whole variety of things that are affecting the fiscal trajectory of the country. We ought to be talking about those things. And we also should be looking at some of the programs that are really important to our future and making investments in those as appropriate.
Representative Cole said almost the same thing. The Republican just a minute ago said we ought to be sitting down talking about all these things. Now the Democrat comes on and says we ought to be sitting around talking about all things. And yet nobody's talking about anything. The government shut down and we're facing a debt ceiling. Why? Why can't anything get done in Washington anymore?
Well, because I don't think we actually have a fact-based discussion in Washington. One of the problems with ideology is people go right to the answer before they look at the facts. So I think if we looked at the facts seriously, and I think my friend Congressman Cole from Oklahoma is a very smart and very wise man, and I suspect we agree on a lot of things. I think if we looked at the facts are pretty clear. We shouldn't be talking about the debt ceiling because it's a destructive thing for the country to violate the debt ceiling. So that should be off the table. In terms of funding the government, nothing really productive comes from not funding the government. In fact, it costs the American people money. So if you want to cost the American people money, you don't fund the government because we still incur all the obligations, and it actually costs us money to fund the government. But what we should be doing is talking about the real issues. And if you actually had an honest discussions about the real issues that are facing this country from a fiscal perspective, the first on that list would be reforming our entitlement programs. Second on that list would be some form of comprehensive tax reform that simplifies our tax system in this country and puts it in a position so we can have more growth and more revenues. And then you'd also put back some of the money that's been taken out of from the sequester. Things like education, some of the defense programs, basic research, those are really dumb cuts. So the question is, how do we get our leaderships, our respective leaderships, to actually have intelligent and constructive conversations around these issues? That's what I think the country's wrestling with.
Well, that is what the country's wrestling with. And that's the question that the reporters ask. Why won't they have these discussions? You just asked the questions that the reporters are asking. There doesn't seem to be an answer. And I don't know why. Why is it that they can't get down to the business of running the country? They've not even begun to get to the business of running the country. They're in the business of poking at each other. The left of the Democratic Party is poking at the moderates. The right of the Republican Party is poking at the moderates. That's all you people seem to do up there. And your approval rating is lower than amnesia.
And it should be low based on our performance. I mean, this is an embarrassment. The Congress and individual members should be embarrassed. Look, at the problem here is how we define success. If we continue to define success in a purely political context, if that's how victory is measured, based on political wins and talking points and useless rhetoric and ideology, we're going to get the kind of outcomes we have today. If we actually change the definition of success, and if the American people demand success, and if the American people actually start voting for people who come to this Congress with a constructive attitude and actually want to work with the other side, instead of rewarding each side, by the way, and each side is guilty of this, instead of rewarding each side for who can say the most extreme things, who can poke at the other person the hardest, as you said. Listen, I've been very successful working on a bunch of bipartisan bills, including with Congressman Cole, and people ask me how I do that. And one of the answers I say is I don't say bad things about people I want to work with. So there's a lot of things that have to change culturally in this institution, and the American people have to demand those changes.
All right. Sir, very nice of you to be here. Representative John Delaney, Democrat of Maryland. Thank you.
My pleasure.